morning to everyone at today's public hearing of Panel A of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. My name is Christopher Lehman, chairperson of this panel, and I will declare this session to be open. The Prosecutor Vetting Commission is established under Law Number 252 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. Law Number 252 establishes that this commission will undertake an ethical and financial evaluation of prosecutors who are identified under Article 3, Paragraph 1 of that law as subjects of the evaluation. This three-member panel is constituted to conduct the evaluation pursuant to Article 15 of Law Number 252. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to provisions of Article 16 of that law, as well as the Commission's rules of procedure for evaluations under Law 252. The subject of today's hearing is Victor Muntean, the Interim Deputy Chief of the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. Mr. Muntean, welcome to the hearing today. I'm joined by my colleagues on the panel, Nadezhda Fritievsky, who is present in person with you today, and Saskia De Vries, who is joining, like I am, on the Zoom platform. The panel is also assisted by members of our Secretariat. The hearing is open to the public and to the media. The hearing will be conducted in interpretation into both Romanian and English, and for that reason, I ask everyone to speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of the interpreters. The proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of this public hearing will be available online on the Commission's website within 3 days of this hearing. Mr. Muntean, during the hearing, one or more members of the panel will ask questions to you. Please answer them truthfully and completely. Your explanations are important to us in verifying compliance with the ethical and financial integrity statute. In formulating our questions, we'll take into account your privacy and, where required and possible, privacy of your family members and close persons. So we will leave out unnecessary details relating to ID numbers, bank accounts, and specific addresses of real estate and the like. For the protection of your privacy and answering, we would suggest that you do the same. As you know, you were advised in the notice of hearing that the panel had identified some areas of questions, and we will be addressing those. You will also be given the opportunity to make a closing statement to the panel. Let me start by briefly reviewing the evaluation process for Mr. Muntean. The Commission initiated its evaluation process on the 25th of May, 2024, by notifying the subject by email and asking him to complete and return an ethics questionnaire and a financial declaration form as required by Law Number 252. The subject returned the completed questionnaire and ethics form and declarations on the 13th of June, 2024. As part of the evaluation of the subject's ethical and financial integrity, the Commission also obtained information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses the information it obtained from these sources for its relevance and reliability. The Commission also sent you 3 rounds of questions to which you responded. Those were on the 4th of April, 2025, the 5th of May, 2025, and the 27th of May, 2025. On June 30th, this panel notified the subject of today's hearing and further advised the subject that the panel, after analysis of the accumulated information, had certain doubts to discuss with you. Those doubts were detailed in an annex to the hearing notice, which was sent to you. Mr. Muntean, again, thank you for appearing at the hearing today. I'll begin with 2 short questions to you. And as noted, I ask you to respond in a complete and truthful manner to those questions. First, I would just ask you if you wish to make any additions or corrections to the information and the answers that you have provided up until now to the Commission.
Bună ziua, bine v-am găsit. Good afternoon. Good to be here. I would like just to make sure that the members of the Commission received by mail my explanations regarding the doubts in the notice of hearing of the 30th of June, so that you could have known what my opinion was regarding the doubts that were raised.
Yes, we did. Thank you very much for sending this.
Otherwise, nothing else for me to add.
And then as a second question, I'd like to just clarify the ethics questionnaire and the declarations that were returned back on the 13th of June, 2024. Are those still accurate as of today?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Mr. Muntean, I'll turn first with some questions about the apartment that I'll refer to as the apartment on R Street. And I'd like to begin by asking you if you could explain the preferential housing scheme at the Superior Council of Magistrates that your wife participated in 2013 or 2014 as a preface to her purchase of that apartment on our street.
As mentioned previously, and in my answers to the rounds of questions from the Commission, indeed, my wife participated for that commission that was established because she too is a public person. She works at the Superior Council of Magistracy. She participated in the commission regarding the award of housing. So an application was filed. To obtain another space to live, another housing, but to expand the housing space we already had. And for that purpose, several documents were filed with the Commission as the Commission requested. And those documents were also annexed. I mean, excerpts of that were annexed, so excerpts from the Register of Real Estate regarding ownership of real estate in the Chokana city district. Now, as for the decision of the Commission under the Council under the SEM, we have annexed that to the answers to the rounds of questions, as well as the decision of the Commission regarding this matter.
So just to clarify, at the time of this opportunity to participate in a preferential housing scheme run by the SEM in 2013, you and your wife did already own an apartment at that time, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that would be the apartment on what I will call M Street.
Yes, that is correct.
And I'd like to clarify if you do you still live at that apartment?
Yes, we still live there. The family lives in that apartment in Chokana city district, and our domicile registration, mine, my wife's, and my children is there.
So it's my understanding that the requirements of the preferential housing scheme in 2013 or 2014 that your wife participated in, the scheme was for those who had insufficient living space, wasn't it?
Was those who didn't have any living space, and those who required improvement of living conditions.
So you required an improvement of your living conditions at that time, even though you still live in the same apartment 11 years later. Is that correct?
Yes, my wife applied for that to improve living conditions. But with regards to this matter,
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off if you were still speaking.
Continuați, da.
with regards to this matter, I have provided answers in the first round of questions. There was question 13, and I maintain my position. I maintain those answers.
Well, how big is the apartment that you live in on M Street? How many square meters?
82 square meters.
And do you recall how big the apartment was that you purchased on our street?
If I'm not mistaken, about 70 square meters.
So how was the purchase of a smaller apartment on our street going to improve your living conditions? What was insufficient about the apartment on M Street that was improved by buying a smaller apartment on our street?
As I've mentioned in my answers to the questions in round 1, so question 13 and my answers to question 13 of the first round, indeed my wife applied, but to justify, to explain to the members of the Commission, she had obtained it for a preferential price indeed, given that though we already having one real estate asset. But the commission that looked into the applications, that commission was established by the SCM, and there was a regulation approved as well. There were conditions set out in the regulation, and according to those conditions, we met the conditions.
Yes, there was no question that the SCM approved the application. I guess my real question is, why did you buy this? Why did your wife buy this second apartment? Was this an investment, or why were you buying an apartment you had no intention, a smaller apartment that you had no intention of moving into?
At this moment in time, we have 2 minor children. So this application was filed, but though when we filed it, we didn't know with certainty that we would be granted that application. There was a commission, and they were working according to a regulation, and we didn't know with 100% certainty that we would be allowed into the list of beneficiaries of preferential prices. And when my wife's application was approved, we accepted to buy the apartment for a preferential price because we had 2 minor children. They were growing up, and it was specifically to respond to the needs of family for the children who at that time were minors.
So I'm not sure I understand the answer to the question. I guess my question is, was the purpose of buying this apartment as an investment for your future?
Yes, it was an investment into the future of our children who we are raising so that they could have a place to live.
So just to review a little bit the details of the purchase of that apartment, do you recall when the initial purchase sale contract was concluded with the construction company? My records indicate that was on the 24th of July, 2014. Is that right?
Apologies. I have provided answers in the rounds of questions. In July 2014, an investment contract was entered into with that company.
And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And the contract stated the price for square meter in that apartment in euros. And the installments that were to be paid for that apartment.
And my records indicate that the price, the total price in euro was approximately 27,180 euros. That would be the price referenced in the 2014 contract, correct?
Yes, that is correct. However, I would like to explain, just like I did in the explanations I provided to the Commission and as a response to the notice, the price was put down in the investment contract, and there were installments provided for related to that apartment. Those installments were paid from 2014 through 2017. In our country, all prices for the purchase and sale of assets of apartments, well, they are established in euros, but at the exchange rate, you're supposed to pay in lei, for the exchange rate as at the day of the transaction. So from 2014 to 2017, we see there's been a devaluation of the Moldovan leu, and from 2014 there was the exchange for 1 euro that was 18.39. In 2017 it was for 1 euro it had to pay 24 lei and 12 bani. That was the average rate.
Yes, I
and
understand.
that's why there is this discrepancy, there is this gap when you look at the amounts in lei. We were paying in Moldovan lei, but on the basis of the euro-Moldovan leu exchange rate as at the date of the payment, and at that time the Moldovan leu, it was going downwards compared to the euro.
Okay.
Yes,
it took several years for the construction of that building to be completed, correct? My records are it was 2017 when the construction was finished. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. That's when this handover document was
right.
Also
and
developed.
So the handover document, that the amount you finally paid, that was paid in 2017, and I have down that amount as 564,860 lei. And I just want to confirm that's correct.
Yes, esteemed members of the Commission, as I've stated previously, the installments were put down in Moldovan lei, but the company was collecting that on the basis of the euro-Moldovan leu exchange rate. I would like to continue by saying that the construction company, well, all of its accounts were based with a commercial bank, and we would have to take into account the exchange rate of that bank. And we know very well that such an exchange rate is much bigger than the official exchange rate established by the National Bank of Moldova. And as we can see, in 2017, it's indeed that 564,860 lei were introduced according to the exchange rate that was 24,000 euros, but in total 27,000 euros were paid.
Okay, so just to clarify what you said, the amount that was finally paid by you for the apartment was 564,860 lei. In 2017, that was worth approximately 24,000 euro, but your assertion would be that you paid closer to 27,000 euro for the apartment?
As I previously mentioned, the amounts were in Moldovan lei as per the exchange rate on the date of the transaction. And according to the handover report, the value of the leu was 24, the value of €1 was 24 lei. And that's why those amounts were put down.
Thank you. And then you actually then sold the apartment on our street in 2018, right? That's correct?
Yes, in 2018, that apartment was sold.
Okay. And you have all the records in front of you. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sale was on the 25th of September 2018, and the sales price was 533,207 lei. Is that right?
Esteemed members of the Commission, it was sold, as I've mentioned also in the beginning of the hearing. All of our transactions, sale and purchase transactions, are performed in euros. It was sold for 27,000 euros. But according to the official exchange rate, as at that date, that was 533,000 lei.
So you're saying that was, you're claiming the exchange rate at that time for 533,000 lei was about 27,000 euro?
Yes, a bit more than 27,000, 27,100.
Now, I just want to go back over some of the loans that were taken out for the purchase of this apartment. As I understand it, did your wife take out several loans between 2014 and 2017 for the purchase of the apartment? I think you referenced those already.
Yes, esteemed members. My wife took a 50,000 lei loan at the beginning of the period for the first installment, and at the end, for the last one, there was another bank loan from Agrobank, and the amount is right there in the explanations and the answers I provided in the rounds of questions.
And there was interest paid on both of those loans, correct?
Yes, interest rates were paid for both. Indeed, and I would like to mention...
Go ahead.
I would like to mention that this was the key condition, the main reason why we sold this apartment in 2018.
I just want to clarify if you remember the amounts of interest that were paid on the loans. Do you remember the amount of interest paid on the 2014 loan from Muntean Bank?
I don't remember the amount of how much interest was paid, though I would like to tell the Commission that we know very well that if you take a loan out from a bank in the first years of payments back to the bank withholds, first of all, the interest and the commission. So on the balance of the loan, to the balance of the loan, very, very little goes to that. And in both cases, and according to the loan amount, 379,000 given by the bank, so that was the key condition that made us sell this apartment and pay back the loan taken from the bank.
Just to refresh your recollection, if you have the records in front of you, the records I'm looking at indicate there was 8,027 lei paid on the 2018 in interest paid on the 2014 loan from Muntean Bank. Is that consistent with your recollections on this?
I don't know the precise amount, but if the Commission has such information, I accept that because the loan was issued on my wife's name.
Okay. And on the 2017 loan, which was the larger loan from Agribank, it was the loan for 369,040 lei. My records indicate that there was interest paid on that of an additional 43,452 lei. Is that consistent with your understanding?
Well, if that information was provided by the bank, I accept that if that was provided to the Commission.
So,
I would like to clarify whether the Commission has information how much was reimbursed before the closing down of the loan. If we compare, so the interest and the commissions taken by the bank were more than what was paid off from the body of a loan before the loan was entirely reimbursed.
well, normally when you take out a loan, you're required to pay back all the principal plus whatever interest is due. So if you did not pay back the principal and the interest, this is your opportunity to explain if that's the case and why you didn't do it.
It's not about that. As I explained in my explanation to the doubts mentioned in the hearing notice, esteemed Commission members, the sale of the strength of that of the sale of apartment was to reimburse the credit because that was a significant financial burden for our family. And as I said, in the first payments, the bank was charging more of the commissions and interest than reimbursement from the principal of the loan. We did a calculation in my family and we found that the investment would be too much that we would not be able to cover with our salaries, and for that reason we decided to sell that apartment to reimburse the loan, and with the money that was left to invest in another real estate without any loans and any economic burden for our family.
You say with the money that was left, what money would have been left if the apartment was sold, if the apartment was purchased for 564,860 lei in 2017 and sold for 533,000 lei in 2018, and you paid out an additional 51,479 lei in interest in order to purchase that apartment in 2017. I don't understand how there could have been money left after a sale at a substantial loss.
Chairperson, as it was explained before, it wasn't purchased in 2017. The investment contract was concluded in 2014 in euros,
No,
in euro currency.
I'm actually sorry. There was a final contract of 564,860 lei in 2017 when you took delivery of the apartment.
That is the handover document after the payment of the installments for the apartment. Those were the rate, but in 2017 it was the handover document after the payment of the last installment for the apartment. And as I mentioned in the explanations and the question rounds, according to the investment contract, it was concluded in euros, and in all contracts it says that the amount is in euros. It was 27. And after selling the apartment, it was sold for 27,000 euros in 2014. We closed the credit that we got from Moldova Agrarny Bank.
All right, what you told me today is that you bought the apartment in 2014 for 27,000 euro. You sold it in 2018 for 27,000 euro. And we know along the way you spent an additional 51,479 on interest, but you told me now that there was also some kind of profit from the sale, and I just don't understand those numbers.
I am not saying I had a profit. It was not done with the purpose of enrichment. Our main purpose was to close that economic burden that the credit was. So after selling the apartment, we closed the credit with the bank, and we exchanged euros to Moldovan lei in order to close that loan. And from the money that was left, we invested in another apartment in conditions that were more favorable than for the apartment on R Street, as you are calling it.
Okay. Let me just clarify, given the amounts in the documents for the sale in 2018, there was no capital gains tax obligation arising on your part, right?
Yes, there was no such obligation.
Mr. Muntean, are you familiar with the Lara valuation of the apartment?
Yes, I was informed through the question round and in the notice as well. And so the one that the Commission provided.
You're familiar with the fact that the Lara valuation for an apartment at this precise location in white condition in 2018 was substantially higher than the amount the apartment was sold for. That in fact the 2018 valuation by Lara was in the range of 741 to 771,000 lei, correct?
Esteemed Chairperson, I don't want to deny or to argue the evaluations carried out by Lara. Lara company is managed by a private legal entity. They are calculating average market prices, taking from smaller prices to highest prices, calculating the average, but that is not typical for every real estate. And as I explained in the answers to the question round, the apartment on R Street was located in a not very good place, and the windows were damaged, and the door was damaged too. It had to be replaced. The windows were going out across. Well, just out of the windows there was another building, and all of these conditions are affecting the market price. But I don't argue the Lara valuation. As said, it's not done specifically for each real estate. It's done based on average price, covering the range from smallest to highest price, and then they calculate the average. Thank you.
And then I also want to ask you about there was a valuation report done by a third party for the Agro Bank. It was drawn up at the bank's direction when they gave you that loan for 369,000 lei. Do you recall that report, seeing that report?
Raportul în cauză eu nu l-am văzut, dar vreau să menționez comisiei, Comisia în materialele care mi-au fost prezentate spre cunoștință au făcut rost de acest raport de evaluare, care este parte componentă a contractului de ipotecă. Bunul în cauză de pe strada R a fost ipotecat băncii și asta a fost o condiție obligatorie a băncii pentru eliberarea creditului în cauză. Mai mult ca atât, vreau să menționez că actul de evaluare care a fost făcut de către evaluator nu cunosc de independent, dar fiecare bancă are evaluatorul său. Și evident a făcut în interesul băncii pentru a putea în caz de nestingere a contractului de credit, banca cu ușurință poate să scoate din imobil și să acopere creditul și evident din statul care va venit urmarea vânzării apartamentului dat.
The liquidation value of the apartment, as established in that evaluation report, was also included in the mortgage. Do you recall the amount of the liquidation value of the apartment that was included in the mortgage? It's at 0.2.3.1 if you need a reference.
Potrivit materialelor livrate și am făcut cunoștință cu raportul de evaluare, dar potrivit contractului de ipotecă și contractul de credit, era 849, cum și se menționa de către comisie.
849,000, as the Commission mentioned.
And actually, that is the lower of the three valuations provided by the independent report. The replacement value, do you recall the replacement value of the mortgage property as established by that outside report?
Nu pot să ne duc aminte, dar acolo sunt trei prețuri indicate de către bancă. Astea sunt condițiile băncii care au fost puse la eliberarea creditului și astea sunt condițiile pentru bancă, nu sunt condițiile pentru prețul de piață sau ceva. Asta e condițiile pentru a fi permis nu primirea creditului în cauză. Asta e evaluările făcute de evaluator de la bancă, care este banca Muntean.
Evaluation carried out by a bank's valuator, which is a commercial bank.
Yeah. The 849,000 was the lowest of the three valuations, correct?
Da, 149 indicat pe cea mai, cum a spus dumneavoastră, adică lichidarea imobilă,
was the liquidation value, yes.
And in round one of the questions, you were actually asked to outline the sources of funds that were used for the purchase on our street, and you provided a valuation, an amount of 894,000 lei as the source of funds for the apartment on our street. And I'm wondering if you can explain to us the discrepancy between the amount you told the commission back at the first round of questions was the amount of the source of funds for the apartment, 894,000 lei. Why that's so different from so much higher than the amount that you sold the apartment for in 2018, if you can explain that discrepancy.
Stimat domn președinte, cum și-am menționat în prima de întrebări, la întrebarea a treia tabelară, au fost și alte surse, cum au fost donații de la părinți din Federația Rusă. Dar consider că Comisia greșită a apreciat, fiindcă toate sursele care au fost donate de către părinți au fost pentru achitarea ratelor pentru apartament. Cum am menționat și în runda
mentioned in round one, question 3, the money was not only for the payment of the installments, but also paying the installments for the loans that were. So there is no discrepancy in this regard.
Mr. Muntean, you can understand why the commission is struggling here, right? You sold an apartment for less than you paid for it shortly after you bought it, and all of the independent sources for the valuation of that apartment indicate that it was worth hundreds of thousands of lei more than you sold it for. So it's difficult to understand what was going on here. If you have anything else that you want to add to this to clarify for us, to help us understand this, the sale, which is frankly a bit suspect, this is your opportunity to enlighten us.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. It is not suspect, and as I said before, in the answers to the question rounds, from the donations of the parents, you deem all amounts that were meant for the apartment and that more was paid than the value of sale in 2018. That is not correct. And as I said, in 2014, according to the investment contract, we invested 27,000 euros in installments were paid until 2017. Including the loan. There is no discrepancy. The apartment was also sold for 27,000 euros. I explained that in the answers to your question rounds. Besides that, we did not have a purpose to get rich. We wanted to finish that loan, which was an economic burden for our family. And as I said, the expenses were too big for us because the bank was, first of all, charging interest and fees and not taking it as reimbursement of the principal. And based on the information that the Commission has, I believe you contacted the seller, the buyer of the apartment, and who told you that he bought it for 27,000 euros, and there was no discrepancy. As I said, the currency exchange rate, euro to Moldovan lei, was very much floating, and the decrease in the value of the Moldovan lei leads to this difference, which raises suspicions for you.
I'm not sure I follow that answer, but let's just review that. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt on the exchange rate. You bought the apartment for 27,000, and basically you sold it for 27,000 shortly after you bought it. But the external evaluations, there's one from Lara that ranges between 37 and 38,000 euro. There's one that was in the mortgage contract that's at 40,000 euro. And that same valuation actually is that the value of the apartment is closer to 50,000 euro. So accepting your arguments about currency fluctuations, you still sold an apartment for 27,000 euro that external evaluations place a value on of somewhere between 37 and 50,000 euro. That is a huge discrepancy between what you say you sold it for, what your sales purchase contract in 2018 states, and what the actual value of the apartment was in 2018. And I guess that's what we're asking you to clarify. And at this point, I still don't really have an answer on that.
Stimați domn președinte, stimați membri
Esteemed
comisiei,
chairperson and
cum am
commission
menționat
members, as I mentioned
și anterior, eu nu pun
previously,
în discuție și nu pot
I
infirma evaluările făcute
can't
de către
argue
Lara sau de
against the
către
evaluations
evaluatorul
carried out by
care
Lara or
a
by
băncii
the
comerciale, care au fost
evaluator of a
parte
commercial
componentă a
bank,
contractului
which
de
was
ipotecă.
part of the mortgage
Deoarece
contract, because
prețul mediu care a fost
the average
făcut de către
price
și compania Lara și de către
calculated by Lara
evaluatorul
and
băncii
by the
comerciale,
evaluator of a
ele se
commercial
rezumă
bank,
și se raportează de la
they
prețul cel mai mic la
are
prețul cel mai mare.
calculated on the range between
duce la
lowest
medie.
and highest
Dar,
price, so they
cum am
reach
menționat
an average
motivele
value.
și condițiile care au
And
stat la baza
as I
vânzării apartamentului
mentioned,
dat.
the
Stingerea
reasons and
creditului în
conditions for
totalmente care au fost o
selling
valoare
the
economică
apartment
pentru
was
familia
to
noastră.
reimburse
Mai mult
fully
atât,
the loan that
apartamentul
was
în
a
cauză,
financial
de pe
burden
strada
for our
R, cum ați
company.
menționat
And the
dumneavoastră,
apartment on
avea
our street,
unele
as you mentioned,
caracteristici
had
care
some traits
erau făcute
that,
de către companii de construcții care
well,
era
built
nevoie
by
de
the
unele
construction
investiții
company.
și
It
din
required
cauza asta și
investment,
prețul real,
and that's
el
why the
a fost
real
de 27.000,
price was
fiindcă înainte de vânzarea
27,000,
apartamentului în
because before
2011,
selling the apartment
însăși
in
cumpărătorul a
2018,
fost și a
the
văzut
buyer
imobilul în cauză
visited
și a
the
apreciat
real estate and
și a fost prețul în cauză cu noi coordonat și
the
acceptat.
price was coordinated with us and
Atunci,
accepted by
înainte
us.
de vânzare, cum
So
v-am mai
then,
spus, că
before the
a
sale,
fost
as
scopul
I said,
principal de
the
a
main
stinge
purpose
creditul
was
menționat.
to
Fiindcă el
reimburse
avea
fully the
unele
mentioned
lacune,
loan,
unele
because
ascunse care
it had
la
some
momentul
hidden
actual urmau
defects
a
that
fi nevoie de unele investiții. Investiții care
required
pentru noi erau foarte
investment,
enorme. Și
which
calculând
would
la
have
veniturile
been
noastre legale,
huge
noi nu
for
le putem
us,
acoperi.
and
În acest
given
considerent
our
a
legal
fost
income,
făcută vânzarea
we
dată.
wouldn't be able to cover
Mulțumesc,
such
domnul
investment, and for that reason, we decided to sell. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks. At several points, you indicated that when you sold it, basically you wanted to get the cash out and reinvest it. And I don't want to mischaracterize your words, but I think that was what you alluded to. So my question would be, once you sold the apartment in 2018, got whatever cash you got for it, did you invest that in another apartment?
Da, stimați domn președinte,
Yes, esteemed chairperson,
în cauză din
we closed
banii rămași,
the
am
loan,
făcut
and
investiții
with the
în
money
alt
that was
apartament,
left, we
care a
invested
fost
in another
menționat și în
apartment
rândul
that
la
was
răspunsurile de
mentioned
întrebări.
in the answers to the question rounds.
Thank you. I'm going to just, at this point, I don't really have any further questions myself on the apartment on our street, but I'll ask if either of my colleagues on the panel have any questions at this point.
Not from me. No.
Okay. Mr. Muntean, I'm almost finished. I just have a few very brief questions about property that was recently acquired by your wife. I'll just say the town, Ileveni. My first question is, can you confirm that on the 1st of December 2023, that your wife did acquire a donation via donation contract from her parents, a house and property in the town of Ileveni?
Stimați domnul președinte, membrii comisiei, ea nu a dobândit casa în cauză din orașul Ileveni, a fost dobândită de părinții soției.
It was acquired by my wife's parents, and a donation
care a fost încheiat la 1 decembrie 2020, da, într-adevăr.
lifelong support-based donation contract was concluded on 1st of December, as you are saying.
That would be the 1st of December 2023, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you or your wife declare the property in Ileveni on your 2023 declarations filed with the National Integrity Authority?
În declarația de avere și interes personal pentru anul 2023, ea nu a fost declarată, fiind întocmită în anul 2024, dar ea a fost declarată în declarația de avere și interes personale pentru anul 2024,
declared in the
2025.
declaration for 2024, which was filed in 2025.
Okay. Mr. Muntean, thank you. At this point, I don't have any further questions. Let me just clarify if either of the other panel members have any last
În completare, dacă îmi
questions.
permiteți.
I would like to add something, if I may.
Yes, I'll give you.
Dacă îmi permiteți.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Vă mulțumesc, domnul președinte.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Cum și de către membrii comisiei au fost invocate
The Commission
dubile
members
referitor la etică,
raised
care nu au fost
doubts
pus în declarația pentru anul
ethical doubt that it was
2023.
not included in the
Vreau să
declaration for
menționez
2023. I would like to mention the
Potrivit
following thing.
clauzelor contractuale din
According to
donații
the
și potrivit articolul 510 din Codul
contract,
Civil,
donation contract, and according to Article 510 of the Civil Code, the legal effect of that contract that was concluded on the 1st of December 2023, you're right with that, will raise
în registrul bunurilor imobile.
at the moment when this real estate is registered in the register of real estate. And there was a special clause in that contract. The notary made a special clause. The notary explained to my wife and to her parents that the legal effects will happen at the moment when it is included in, it is recorded in the register of real estate. This is according to the legislation. And if it is not recorded in the register of real estate, it has no legal effect in relation to the possession of that property. And my wife scheduled to register that real estate in February. She came to the register and he told her that she needs to bring additional documents, ID of her parents and marriage certificate and my ID as well. And she was scheduled for March to come to the multifunctional center. At the end of February 2024, my wife and I filed our declaration of interest and of assets and personal interest for 2023. And this real estate was not mentioned there because the contract by that time was not recorded in the register of real estate. After it was recorded in the register of real estate,
adică nemijlocit intrarea în vigoare a contractului,
it entered into force by getting the stamp and the cadastral number. And I would like to mention to the Commission members that this is not ownership right, it is encumbrance of the ownership right, because my wife will become the owner of this property when her parents will pass away. My wife and my wife have no right of possession, use and disposal of that property as long as the parents are alive. Moreover, according to the contract provisions,
din contractul dat, proprietarul proprietarii care sunt
the owners, the parents of my wife, at any time can terminate unilaterally this contract.
Să atestă faptul dat.
Which proves it.
Potrivit dubelor invocate, noi n-am avut scopul de a ascunde bunul dat.
Well, looking at the doubts that were mentioned, we did not mean to hide it. We only followed the legislation in force, and that property was reflected in the declaration of assets of my wife and my declaration for the year 2024. And I think that these doubts are unjustified because we have no right of use, possession, and disposal of this property, which form the ownership right over a piece of property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muntean. Let me again clarify my colleagues on the panel, if either of them have any further questions. Mr. Muntean, at this point, I'll give you an opportunity to make a closing statement to the panel.
Da, vă mulțumesc, domnul președinte, stimați membrii comisiei. În primul rând, în încheiere vreau să spun că eu mențin răspunsurile mele date la întrebările date. Eu vreau să vă mulțumesc comisiei, fiindcă este un proces complex. Urmarea examinării materialelor care au fost administrate de către comisie, observ că o procedură nouă, complexă, care are nevoie de un profesionalism ridicat și vreau să încurajez colegii mei să fie deschiși și să dedic cu abnegație. Totodată vreau să mulțumesc membrilor familiei mei, nemijlocit care m-au încurajat la acest exercițiu complex care este pentru prima dată în Republica Moldova.
exercise that is happening for the first time in Moldova. And I would like to thank you for this hearing, and I believe that by the answers to the questions that I received, I managed to convince the commission members, and I would like to say with certainty that all the answers I provided today at the hearing and in the question rounds and in the additional explanations that were provided just before today's hearing, they are certainly truthful, they are true and actual. I have nothing to hide, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your participation today at the hearing and throughout this evaluation process. The panel will now deliberate on the matter, and I declare the hearing to be closed.